America's enemies are at the gates. They're also already inside the country. Let's talk about it next here on Prepper Nation. Good morning, nation. John here. Happy Monday. Thank you very much. Yes, you, the person watching and listening, I'm talking to you. Thank you very much for being here this morning, hitting thumbs up, hitting subscribe, all of the I want to be famous on YouTube stuff, although I really don't want to be famous on YouTube. We've got two topics to discuss this morning. Enemy at the gates, enemy already inside the gates, Trojan horse style. We're going to cover both of those. And ironically, we have two live streams taking place here at Prepper Nation today. One for the folks on Patreon. So on Patreon, we're going to be wargaming, actually, Ukraine and Russia. What does each side need to do in order to win the war? How should they go about it from here on out? So if wargaming is your thing, this will be linked down below so you can join that chat. The second, for the coffee club, we're going to be live streaming. We are going to be reviewing a classic, a mystical classic, if you will, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And I got some thoughts on that movie, both good and bad. But let's talk about, first and foremost, the enemy at the gates. So late last week, China and Russia, they held joint naval exercises. And they were very, very close to the Aleutian Islands. If you're not familiar, it's off the coast of Alaska, but it is, U.S. territory. And there was actually a convoy of 11 ships, both Russian and Chinese together, running this joint exercise. The U.S. Navy mobilized 4 destroyers and sent them out to kind of shoo them away would be the proper word, or, coast alongside them until they finally left the area. And the Pentagon has called this unprecedented aggression, on behalf of Russia and China. And I'm like, wait, hit the brakes here. Tap them for a second, son. Tap the brakes on this Camaro, and let's talk about this. So I can remember not even a year ago, the United States and its allies doing the same thing in the Taiwan Strait. I can remember doing a video saying, what are we doing? Why are British destroyers, why are, American destroyers going through the Taiwan Strait this close to the coast of China? So I don't think it's unprecedented aggression. I do think it's an aggressive move. But again, we're responsible for the same thing. What does this mean? Well, it can mean a lot of different things. When I saw this story, I said, this is, occasionally we'll get hit with the story. It'll be one Russian bomber getting very close to Alaskan airspace or something, and we have to chase it off. But again, this is a convoy of 11 very capable warships from what I would argue are two biggest enemies. So this is a big deal to me. So this could be simply do unto others. If the U.S. and its allies, the West as they call us, if they're going to do it to us, if they're going to taunt us by going through the Taiwan Strait and waving at us as they coast away here in China, turnabout is fair play. This could be China and Russia saying, you know what, we're just going to start doing the same thing. We can do it too, bro. This could be, and it is likely to test the response time and the response itself. The strength. What is the United States going to respond with? In this case, it was 4 destroyers. How long does it take them to get here? This could be a military move. This is strategy if they're indeed planning something bigger. It could just be a show of unity between these two, because we keep hearing in the news China and Russia are on the outs. They're on the rocks here. The bromance is over, so to speak. Well, if that's the case, why are they running joint military exercises, that would make no sense. I know that would mean the mainstream media here in the United States is lying to the people. I can't believe it. But it does. It totally contradicts mainstream media's narrative, because not just here in the United States. Let me backtrack on that. If you watch BBC, if you watch Sky, if you watch the Canadian news, for example, you're going to see the same story. Same story. They're on the outs. China is warming up to the west. Russia is going to be by itself as an isolated country, a rogue nation, if you will. But it doesn't appear to be that way. Again, why would they be running joint military exercises? Now, I will tell you, with the Aleutian Islands, the Japanese tried this back in 1942. I believe the campaign lasted just over a year, and the Japanese fudged around and found out. Basically, they had intended to take all of Alaska, invade the United States. From there, that was going to be the flashpoint. They couldn't hold it, because not only was the U.S. military response pretty swift, but also the folks in the Aleutian Islands, the citizens there, fought back, and they did so very bravely. And the Japanese found out, oh boy, we bit off a lot more than we can chew. So I will say this about Alaska and the Aleutian Islands, because again, they're off the coast quite a ways. These are very strategic points. Now, I'm not saying that an invasion is imminent, okay? But if you were going to invade the United States, and you are Russia and you are China, because they're in close proximity to the Aleutian Islands, this would perhaps be the place to do it, because this gives you enough of a staging area, and this gives you enough space to send bombers off and things like this. But again, I mean, it's very strategic, but very hard to hold. So just keep your eye on that. Our mainstream media covered it for a couple of hours, and then it totally disappeared out of the news cycle. I think they figured out, oh, wait a minute. We've been telling the American public one thing, this contradicts it. Let's get it out of the news. So just keep your eye on it, keep looking for news. But listen, many enemies of the United States are already here. Can I get an amen or a FJB if that's your, fancy this morning? Because I do think he's a traitor, but that's my opinion. So actually today is Monday, right? There's a Colorado gun law that takes effect. And what this does, this gun law in Colorado, is it's going to raise the purchase age to 21, from 18 to 21, with a couple of exceptions. Number one, if you are active duty military and you are in Colorado, you can still purchase a firearm at 18, 19, 20, whatever the case may be. And if you are a peace officer, active duty, a cop, if you're a police officer, you can purchase a firearm 18 and up. So my first question here, I get that it's unconstitutional. I'm not a fan of the law, and I think eventually it'll be struck down. I hope, but I mean, that's kind of the problem here in the United States. We always step back and we hope the courts are going to intervene, or we hope something is going to be done about it. Maybe we should, be a little more aggressive, not to do anything illegal. But again, I view this as constitutional, but I'll back off. I digress. My biggest question was, what about the veterans in Colorado? Because using a firearm is not something that you forget how to do. This is like swimming. This is like walking. This is like riding a bike. My feelings are, once you've had the proper training, again, not that I'm a fan of this new gun restriction law, but they've also had the same training. They've had extensive training. So my thoughts are, what about the veterans? Does their training just go away? Do we not care about them? Do we not care about their right to own a firearm? And I know that's not going to apply to a lot of people. Many veterans are beyond, the age of 21, but there's some. I mean, let's be honest. There's some that are 18, 19, 20 that are back home already. But again, either way, this is unconstitutional. It seems like infringement to me. You take a look at the Second Amendment, and it seems like they're doing exactly what the Second Amendment says. Don't let them do this. Don't let them infringe. Shall not be infringed. It seems like infringement to me. This was introduced by Democrat Monica Duran, and she says, and I quote, limiting access to guns saves lives. No, it does not. I would counter that with an opinion that criminals are still going to have access to guns. What this does, in my opinion, it limits responsible gun owners from being able to protect themselves, especially when you've got a close to 10-minute national police response time. And that's not dunking on police officers. I get it. They have a tough job, but let's call a spade. They don't exactly get there very swiftly in many cases. And a lot can happen within 8, 9, 10 minutes, as y'all already know. The ability to defend yourself is paramount. So switching over, Friday, 24 House Democrats, it seems like it's always the Democrats, doesn't it? Just saying. 24 House Democrats introduced a bill that introduces a 1,000% excise tax on any firearm that is sold with the capacity of 10 plus. So, again, in my opinion, but I believe it's accurate, this is meant to price most of the American population out of owning a firearm, okay? To give you a quick example, a solid rifle that's set up well, $2,000, ain't a ton of money to spend on that, okay? With this excise tax, if this thing were to pass, that $2,000 rifle becomes a $20,000 rifle. And that's out of the affordable range for many, U.S. citizens, and they know this. This is another way to limit people, to stop them from buying firearms to protect themselves with. Again, this is anything with a 10-round or more fixed magazine. And they made the quote-unquote assault rifle reference several times in this bill. They're coming specifically after those. They can't pick them out of a lineup. They can't tell you the difference between a 22 that looks like an AR and an AR and an M16, for example. They can't tell you the difference. But, it's those keywords. It's election year. We've got an election coming up. I think that this is Democrats trying to do as much as they can possibly do to give Joe Biden something to point to and saying, hey, we're trying to fix the issues that we have here in the United States. Should this pass, much worse in Colorado, should this actually pass, this would be nationwide, all 50 states. So the people in Colorado today, again, are waking up with new gun legislation, gun reform, whatever you want to call it. But the bill that was introduced Friday, again, by 24 House Democrats, that would be nationwide. So keep an eye on it. And I would add that the time to buy is now. If you've been on the fence about buying something one way or the other, especially if it's 10 rounds and up, you might not want to wait much longer. Do I think this is going to pass? Probably not. They probably don't have enough votes in the House this time around. But the way that Democrats roll is it's like playing baseball. They keep swinging until they get a hit. You know what I'm saying? So the time to buy is now. Threats are everywhere. Again, we were just talking about Russia. We were talking about China. So many threats also here in the United States. The police response time, the political election cycle coming up, especially if you're in an urban or heavily populated area, your safety is literally in your hands now. Straight up. Even if you call 911 and somebody answers, they're not going to be able to have somebody there immediately or within 2 or 3 minutes in most cases. I know that sounds crazy, right? But even 2 or 3 minutes in the wrong situation is a lot of time. If somebody is armed and they're coming through the window and you don't have a firearm, 3 minutes is going to seem like 3 years. 10 minutes, whatever's done is done at that point. You really need to have protection. You need to be able to protect yourself and your family. Please don't leave this up to the government. Please don't do it. And as of right now, aside from Colorado, if you're 18 and older, in most of the country, I know some cities have their own illegal legislation. If you can get your hands on it, get your hands on it while you still can, folks. This is John with Prepper Nation. Again, just a quick reminder, 2 live streams coming up today for the Patreon crowd and the Coffee Club crowd. Both of those are linked in the video description below. Y'all take care. God bless.